We are back. It is Codtacular podcast episode number 4. Hello, everybody. I'm Puckett. We got Big Timer currently on his way to Chicago for a last minute event. So I brought in one of my good friends I've known for quite a while. It's my first time seeing you without a mustache in quite a bit, Mr. Campbell. Rich, how you doing, bud?
I'm not happy about the whole mustache thing. I'm not gonna lie. But when you first met me, I didn't have the mustache. So I feel like you're one of the few people. The Dota community is up in arms because they've never seen me without the mustache. But you're one of the OGs. You know me without the mustache.
I've seen clean shaven Rich Campbell. For those of you who don't know Rich Campbell, this is a guy who started as an intern at MLG. He lied about some of his abilities and then taught himself watching YouTube videos in the MLG office overnight. We're going to get into the whole backstory, but now he's landed on the biggest desk in esports, including hosting the Dota 2 International. You've seen him on the Call of Duty World League. You now see him on the Call of Duty League, and you were most recently in London, where we got a chance to see the Huntsman walk away with a 50-point bonus. Rich, can we start, though, with London? Then we're going to get to the whole backstory here.
Okay.
Because
I didn't lie. We'll talk about it later. I didn't lie though. Will just didn't give a flying hoot. But yeah, London was incredible. I think it's one of my favorite events that I've gotten to work with Call of Duty. It also was probably spicier because it was the first time I'd been there in such a long time. So everything was just getting thrown at me and it felt new.
Okay.
I think the biggest downside to the event, though, is the fact that Octane's team sucks so bad. That's obviously hard for me.
Octane, can you explain this, by the way? So Octane plays for the Surge, and I watched these guys struggling. They went round 11 against the Gorillas. They almost didn't even make it to the next day. But where did your love for Octane begin? Because for some reason, there was this breakout star named Octane, and his closest friend on the broadcast was Rich Campbell, who didn't really commentate at the time. You weren't really on the shows, but it seemed that you two were super good buds.
I think I'm trying to remember which event it was actually at. I think it was Codex P. I didn't know anyone, and I was on Snapchat duty. I was literally running around with Andrew Vanette and Snapchatting. That's kind of how I met everybody. And
you were the Snapchat guy.
Yeah, I was just a Snapchat dude. Everybody knew I wasn't gonna put anything up that didn't make them look good. So I only put up, stuff that was palatable. And I started talking to Sam, and he was a huge WoW nerd. And I was like, dude, we should play WoW sometime. And 2 days later, we were playing WoW, and we just became really good friends around WoW. And we play like a lot of video games together now. It's not just WoW. And he was also too super. He knew that I cared about games. So when I was still learning Call of Duty, he was kind of the guy too that even for this Call of Duty, he's always the guy that's like, I will tell you everything. I will tell you what we're thinking. Don't leak our strategies. Obviously, right now, nobody would care if I leaked their strategies, right? Because it's not working. But sometimes it would obviously be a pretty valuable thing for a lot of people to leak. And you know how that is with players too, kind of creating that trust. Right. And never screwing anybody over with things like that, because sometimes you will have access with this job. But yeah, that was kind of Sam and I just found out we liked a lot of similar games, and he knew that I cared a lot about not only Call of Duty but the players in COD. So it just was a natural friendship.
So how good would Sam be without World of Warcraft in his life? And do you feel that you had an impact on his career up to this point with the amount of WoW hours we put in Rich Campbell?
I think Seth's going to give me shit for this, actually. But Sam gets better when he's playing other games. I genuinely believe that Sam gets better when he's playing other games because he's more relaxed.
Okay.
Usually, and I think he has a good sense of when he should be playing other stuff because he's getting burnt out and things like that. Seth was one of those players where I always knew if I saw that Scump was online playing his Warlock, I'm like, oh man, they're gonna get smoked. They're gonna get smoked today. He was one of it. He's not the only one. I'm trying to think who else it was, because everybody, not everybody, but a lot.
I know Karma goes deep when he picks up new games. Did he ever get into the WoW scene with you guys?
Yeah, he's so bad at WoW. I
Karma's
literally
bad at a video game? I don't believe this.
Okay, I was playing Karma with WoW one time. He's telling me we were telling this, but we literally were in Discord with him. We couldn't figure out what he was doing. And a half hour later, you just hear the flop of the mic, and he goes, "Dude, my mic was on top of my head." And we're like, "Oh,
no,
Karma, one, dude.
Damon, come on.
Karma's, yeah, he's not gonna wow. He's not gonna wow. Seth's not bad.
Okay.
Octane is genuinely really good.
Really
He's
good.
actually really good at WoW. Also, Nagafen is really good at WoW.
This
I
is
play a lot.
I hear Nagafen is like another guy who can just figure out anything. If it comes to like engineering a live stream, he's a master at it. Any weird game that you might have heard of, he's a master at it. Who's better at WoW, Nagafen or Octane though?
So the thing is I would say as far as Sam is really good at being a jock in WoW. Like he's not gonna ever think about shit. He's not gonna know mechanics, but he's just gonna go in and he'll always do really good damage. So he's good to have on your squad. Jared will actually nerd out, figure out the best thing to do. He's just an intelligent gamer, and it doesn't matter what he plays. Sender's actually similar because Sender plays a lot of WoW, and now he's obviously coaching Chicago, and I think that he's probably not getting enough credit for what he's doing with that team. But when I look at Jared as a player, I just played a lot of Path of Exile with him too. Okay. He's an intelligent dude. He's just an intelligent video game player, and I think he's going to be good at pretty much any game that involves high IQ and curvaceous brains.
All right. Well, we're going to set WoW aside. I was waiting for the viewers to fill up. They're starting to arrive, and we should do the intro again. Guys, this is episode 4. I brought on Rich Campbell, who has been in the esports scene for quite a while. And today, while Big Timer is traveling up to Chicago, it's just Rich and I wanted to move away from our style where we were just looking at the matches and rehashing what went down. Instead, we're going to dive a little bit into Rich's life and talk about how he got to where he's at today. For those of you who don't know, Rich was just one of the analysts on our desk at Call of Duty League for London, where the Royal Ravens were hosting 7 other teams. And at the end of it all, the teams are earning points for their CDL season. Rich, let's start at the very beginning, though. And actually, before we get this going, I'd like to give a shout out to another content creator. We've got some fans of his in the chat right now. Our buddy, Kingdom Soldier, is going through a tough time. And right now, I have a donate link available right below this stream. If you'd like to support Kingdom and his family, they've been making content for the Call of Duty scene, going all the way back to when there was MLG one weekend and UMG the next. Kingdom and Smiting and a bunch of others helped us all follow it. Right now, he is looking for new work, and he's trying to support his 3 sons. I want to help him get there, and I know the Call of Duty community will surround him and help him get back on his feet. He also has recently launched a podcast, so if you're tired of listening to Maven, if you don't like Brycey's voice, if you don't want to listen to Rich Campbell and I, check out Kingdom Soldiers podcast. It's on YouTube. I believe they're also live streaming on twitch.tv. With that out of the way, let's get back into the action. Rich Campbell, first I ever heard of you was, hey, there's this guy coming in tomorrow. He's really cool. I don't know what he's going to do for us, but here he is in a music video on a bridge. That was the intro. Man. That was the intro to who this character was who was going to show up at the office. First off, what was that bridge video you were in, Rich Campbell?
It was 1 in a Million by Andrew. That was the it was definitely kind of a weird music video.
It was a music video.
It's got like close to 3 million views probably.
Can you throw it in the chat right now? Can we find it? What's the name again, real quick? Your mic was cutting out there.
1 in a Million by Andrew Rael.
In a million.
Here, I'll try to find it. It's so bad, dude. I actually think COD didn't know about it for a while. Yeah, it's 2.5 million views. It's actually so bad.
And you were brought on to be the love interest of the singer for this song, or how did it go down?
So basically, I needed money really bad, and my one friend was going to do this music video, and I was like, dude, I need money. And he was like, well, if you need money, you can do this music video instead of me. I don't really feel like doing it, and I'm kind of double booked anyway. And I was like, aren't they going to notice? And he goes, yeah, you look enough like me. He's taller than me. I got there and the girl was like way taller than me. And it was super awkward the entire time, but I got some cash and got back on my feet. It was pretty close to the time that I started working at MLG, right? And the whole reason I ended up there in the first place was because of Ethan, really. Ethan and I were in a video game design class together. And he was like, hey, if you want to work at MLG, they're looking for, it was essentially interns to work behind the camera. And I walked in, and for some reason, Will gave me the job.
Okay, can we talk about this? So, were you into video games before you joined Major League Gaming? For those who are just joining the podcast, Major League Gaming, of course, started esports basically in North America amongst a few other companies. Really grew up doing Halo, Call of Duty, all console titles, and then they brought in StarCraft, League of Legends, and more, and exploded in the mid 2010s, I should say. Rich Campbell, what year did you come join us?
Oh, I started MLG 2015 or 2016 was when I started working. But yeah, I watched esports forever. Like I don't even know when I started. I watched pretty much every game, and I was never there was never one game that I was completely locked in on. I just watched everything depending on what I caught. And World of Warcraft was probably the first game that I went super deep on as far as playing. And then after that was Hearthstone, and Hearthstone was kind of the first time that
Mm-hmm.
I had thought about commentating. And I know even back when I was working for you, I was always trying to cast Hearthstone. Besides that, like Call of Duty, I never thought I was going to be able to cast Call of Duty. I always thought that everybody was, as far as Call of Duty went, and I still believe this, Call of Duty is some of the best talent. So I was always super scared. I didn't know what my role would be. And when I looked at Hearthstone, I saw a role for myself. I knew that how I was going to do it was different than how other people did it. I still can't believe Call of Duty was kind of the first one I did, though, in a way. That was where I kind of got my
Did
footing.
you ever do Hearthstone? Do you do
Yeah.
Hearthstone right now?
Not right now, but I could do it right now, but it's been a while. I actually got to go to some of the craziest places with Hearthstone. I did it with Hearthstone's also the reason I got into Dota and the reason that I was able to cast Dota in the first place. If I didn't cast Hearthstone, I definitely wouldn't have gotten TI. And I think Dota is one of the games that really changed my life quite a bit. It came out of nowhere, and it was also, through that tough transition period was when Dota started. It was when I wasn't doing COD. It was when I wasn't doing WoW. I no longer had my job at MLG.
All
I
right,
was like,
before
yeah,
we get there,
yeah.
walk us back. Walk us back. So, Melanie's mom in the chat wants to know who brought you into MLG. You mentioned this guy Ethan.
Yeah.
You mentioned Will, but what was the process like? How did you go from knowing people who worked at the company to actually coming into the office on a daily basis?
So the full chain of events was I bumped into Ethan on the street after we had
And
had a
who is
video game
Ethan?
design class. Ethan, at the time, Ethan was an intern, essentially. By the end of our journey, he was the main director and producer for Call of Duty for CWL.
Yep.
And now he works over with Adam Apicella at Esports Engine. But he was just my buddy from college who I liked to drink beer with. And I bumped into him on the street. I hadn't seen him in probably 6 months. I was delivering groceries for Instacart, and I had gotten accepted to get my master's degree. So I was planning on doing that, and I was just going to sell groceries in the meantime. But they had changed the pay of it. So I was kind of like, I should probably get a different job. It's not really worth as much anymore. And that night, it just felt like, I bumped into Ethan, and he was like, "Hey, it's not going to pay well at all, but it would probably be good for your career." It was. I literally was sleeping in the office quite a bit, and people did start to notice at a certain point. But I was like, this is something I'm interested in. I would love to do it, but I don't know anything about it. And he was like, "Dude, you'll be fine. Just come in for an interview." Then 2 days later, I went into an interview with Will. And Will had known me from playing StarCraft at school and things like that.
So
I think he was,
Will Brayu, by the way, also started as an intern, worked his way up to basically being in charge of that production room. Anytime I wanted to go live with the esports report, it was either Will on the board or people that Will had determined would be in place, guys like Ethan and Rich early on.
Yeah, and Will was my boss for quite a long time, and obviously still a very good friend of mine. He's over at Esports Engine as well. With
He was the guy in my ear this weekend when I was working the NYXL show, so it was pretty sweet to have Will still like on the mic.
Yeah, he was telling me about, because he did everything front of house, which obviously was exactly your wheelhouse, and he started doing front of house stuff during CWL, and I knew that he just loved it. So I was super excited to hear that he was still doing all of that. And he was telling me about how they were planning everything. And I was really upset, also excited, because obviously I was excited to be in London, and I was excited to hear that there's going to be stuff going on in our city, which doesn't happen very often, but I wish I could have been there.
It's a great problem. Everyone was saying, why aren't you in London? It's like, because I'm also working here where I live, and I get to go home and see my wife, which is kind of sweet at the end of the night.
It's also just a show in the best city in the world, right? It doesn't have
kicking off Overwatch week. It was a good weekend. But sorry, back to Will. So Will brings you in. You have your interview. Does he give you any tough like technical questions, or it's just like, hey, you've got a good attitude. We think we'll be able to mold you into someone that can help the team?
Yeah, he straight up he asked me a bunch of questions. He was like, do you know how to do this? And I was like, no, I don't. And I answered everything with every single question he asked me. I said, no, I don't, but I can try. Like, I would like to learn it. And I was basically open with the idea that I've never made a single video besides using fraps back in the day. And he's like, yeah, you'll learn everything. Sure enough, he has me come in, and it was during the time that Call of Duty was getting DDoSed a whole bunch, like a whole bunch. And my first job was to record all of the matches for you to cast over with Zinni later.
Yep.
And
Zinni being Anthony, right? Was it
yeah,
Moobot?
Yeah,
Moobot, methods.
Man, Moobot, baby. So I recorded all of the matches, and I actually screwed up because I didn't know during halftime I needed to restart the spectator, and I went to take a shit, and it was my first mistake at MLG. It was the poop apocalypse. I didn't move the controller. I only missed like 30 seconds of gameplay, but I remember the next day I was so scared, and I told you about it, and you're like, don't worry, we'll cover it up. And you covered it up. That same day.
We got you.
You covered it up. And then the same day, Zinni lost his spot in the VOD because he's casting through Skype. And he types in, I lost my spot. And I tell you that Zinni lost his spot. And without even thinking, you say the time in the game. You're like, 15 minutes and 13 seconds on the clock. And you did a countdown. And I was just like, holy shit. I wish I was able to do that. Like, that was one of those moments where you just see somebody piss on a fire. And it was so perfect. And it was so next level. And I always think back to that moment where that was when I started to think, yo, I kind of want to try to do the on-camera thing. And sure enough, Rocket League came along. I started, they basically gave me the vertical and told me I can make content with it. Yep. I could do whatever I wanted. And I was staying in the office super late, learning everything about the game, making top fives, like just combing the internet for plays. And you were voicing the top fives. And sure enough, you got married. And when you got married, you needed someone to stand in for you and be talent. And I said, hey, Chris, could I give it a go? And that was how I started casting.
So Molly Puckett is the reason you're a commentator today.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. It's so funny when I tell the story because it was being in the right place time and time again. And I just, I was trying to learn as much as I could. So I feel like I didn't completely fall on my ass every time. Also, commentating with Benson, your first show is not too bad. Like that was pretty easy to cast with Benson.
You got a pretty good lead there. Yeah, he's got you.
Yeah, nothing was gonna go wrong with Ben next to me. And then after that, you came back and gave me some words of encouragement. You and Ben were huge helps. I kept poking around looking for little things. Smite came around. Nobody really casted Smite.
Yeah, third-person League of Legends. Who wants to cast this game? Rich Campbell was like, I do. Guys, can I have this one, please?
I still stay close to everybody from the Smite days. There are a lot of cool people.
I actually learned to like Smite after your excitement for it. Like, I just simply judged it without ever playing it, without ever looking at it. And you were the guy who's like, guys, Smite. We got to get on this game.
Yeah, it was so fun actually to learn that game, and it was very challenging for me because I never excelled in MOBAs. And Ryan Thompson was basically like, hey, if you want to cast it, you can cast it every week. And that was where I started to get my reps and actually practice a lot. Mm-hmm. Sure enough, World of Warcraft came along. Everybody knew my experience with WoW, so they let me work on that show. I cut up a reel of me casting. Blizzard gave me my chance to cast it. Then after that, I casted every single WoW event until last year where I missed a few. But I casted every single WoW event for MDI, AWC, everything for WoW. I was like blown away that I got to do that.
So and real quick, did you know how to edit at the time? Because everyone always asks, like, how do I become a commentator? How do I get that job? Was this something that you trained yourself how to do knowing you needed it? Could you not afford how to get a reel made? How did that whole process go down?
I taught myself everything. I knew how to do absolutely zero things when I first started. and I would just stay in the office after I was done my work. And the one thing I remember I practiced a shitload, which eventually paid off, was the teleprompter. Because I remember actually you got Bud Light Masters, it was called, I think, and you needed somebody to help you practice with the teleprompter. So I learned how to use the teleprompter, and then I was like, shit, I don't think many people can probably read this the way that Chris is. I want to know how to do that. And I would just sit there and I would run the teleprompter for myself, and I would run it super fast and just read it as fast as I could. And then I would run it super slow and try to say different things than what the teleprompter said, and then also read the teleprompter. And I would do that for probably 3 hours every night after work. And then I would practice the TriCaster, and then I would take everything that I made and I would take all the best clips of it and I would edit it. So that was how I learned how to edit, read the teleprompter, and just get more comfortable in front of camera.
You did this all in the MLG offices after everyone else went home.
Yeah. And then I usually would sleep on the couch. I would play Destiny for like an hour in the couch in the ping pong room, and I would just sleep there and hope that nobody noticed I was wearing the same clothes the next morning. And it was right around the time that that's why me and my ex-girlfriend, one of the reasons we split up, actually, because I just like never left the office. But I look back at that, and it was hands down one of the best times of my life, because you're just learning everything, and people just kept giving me chances to do shit. I just constantly felt like that was why MLG was so great. Nobody was ever like, no, you can't do this, or I'm doing this. Right. It was like, yeah, just do whatever you want to do. Are you having fun? Do you love the game? Great, you're at the right place. And I was making like $0. I was eating chips from the fucking communal kitchen. And I remember when they got the Baby Bell cheeses, it was the best day of my life.
Yes, protein.
It's like, finally, good food. And that was just kind of how I learned everything. And you just look at all these moments that happened, and it happened very quickly. And there was a lot of luck involved, but also just making sure that you knew how to do the stuff when you did get that lucky break. Because even with Dota, you know Vlad on Duco, who used to work at Star Ladder.
Yep.
So I did a show in Europe. Basically, I did my first WoWcast. They gave me one set. Olivia, who was in charge of the program at the time, said, would you be interested in doing a European show? I said, yeah, when is it? And she was like, don't worry about that. Just go on. You're going to cast some more. I get off. She goes, tomorrow. I fly to Ukraine. A few hours later,
no way.
I sit down and I casted for 14 hours straight. And I remember too, because you were joking around about it a whole bunch. You were like, wait, dude, you've been casting for a few months and you're going to crazier places than I do. Yeah. And I randomly ended up in Ukraine, and I casted with Healing Stat, who I've done a lot of work with him. It was his first cast and my first cast, and it was 14 hours straight. We had 5 breaks or something like that in between the cast. And I look at that now, and that felt like a faster day than when I do a 3-hour show now, because I was so hyped to be able to do it. And after that, Vlad was like, hey, dude, do you want to stay to do Hearthstone? I know you said you always wanted to do Hearthstone. I was like, yeah, I really would, but I have to be back for work, because Dino was our boss at the time. And Dino was like, I couldn't miss the week. So I had to fly back, make the videos for Dino, and then I flew back to Dubai, casted Hearthstone. And
so you were in Ukraine and Dubai in your first month of casting?
Yeah. It was well, it wasn't my first month of casting, but it was the first gigs that I did outside of MLG.
Got it.
Were there. Yeah, because my first events were Rocket League at MLG, and then after
your internet,
the Smite stuff.
Okay, you're back. Whew.
Okay, yeah, sorry. My PC's being a little weird because I bought it at 4 a.m. when I was drunk. But yeah, then after I gotta fix this thing. But yeah, after that, they did all that work with him, and then I was kind of on the contract for Call of Duty, and I couldn't take the work that he was giving me. And right when I got laid off or fired or whatever people want to say, he hit me up and he was like, "Hey, are you still looking for work? You can do this Dota major." And that was the first time I did Dota, was a major in China. And after that, I ended up going to TI. So all those things connected.
This was Vlad again, or who gave you that opportunity?
Yeah, Vlad. Vlad actually ended up getting me in probably 3 different games, and he's no longer at Star Ladder. If anybody's watching right now who's hiring people in esports, Vlad is currently looking for a job, and he's a rock star.
Great dude. We both like him. He also called you Chris Puckett at one point.
He called me Baby Chris.
Baby Chris. Big fan of Vlad. Awesome to hear that he gave you opportunities. Can you share, though, for anyone who's new, what is like a starting gig rate? Was it decent money for the travel? Because 14 hours a day is brutal.
At the very beginning, I was probably making this is I think Vlad always paid me well.
Okay.
At the very beginning though, I did not know what I was doing, and I was probably making like $100 a day, $125 a day to cast. I would not tell anybody to accept that now, right?
Yeah.
I think at the time, stuff was new enough that I don't feel like I screwed up that bad taking $125 a day. But now I tell people, if like for their first event, usually to look for like 300 to 400 for their first event.
With that said, I also did a lot of volunteer work before we got paid
Yeah.
for it. So whatever opens up the doors. I think the one thing that I loved about your personality, one thing I think other people can learn from you, is you were basically Jim Carrey and Yes Man. It's just you never said no. It's like, can you do this? Can you do this? I'll figure it out. Or yeah, give me a minute. I would just throw you into the weirdest situations and just see if you could handle it. And you always crushed it. Was there ever a moment where you felt like, oh no, this is all going downhill, I'm gonna be out of work real soon?
The Bukkake moment, I got pretty nervous. Actually, do you know the Bukkake story?
You might want to explain that one for the chat.
Oh man, okay, that was
Don't
one
Google
of the,
it, kids. Don't Google it.
I mean,
You'll
you
find
can
something
probably-
different.
Okay, so yeah, basically, okay, there was at the Dota Major, I was actually pretty scared. But it was pretty funny. I didn't know my co-caster really well, and I was watching the game and I was like, man, this match is a bukkake. Like, what a mess. And you know how I talk when I'm off camera. I'm not necessarily the most PC guy most of the time.
The green rooms are a safe place in most locations. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I said that the match was a bukkake. And to be fair, although a colloquialism, it was definitely a bukkake. And he goes, what's a bukkake? Like, I don't know what that is. And I thought he was trolling. And I go, why don't you just ask me on the broadcast? And I didn't realize he was going to do it. And sure enough, we're casting, casual 100-something thousand people watching. And I go, hey, man, pretend this is my first time. It was my first time hosting Dota. I said, pretend this is the first time I'm hosting Dota. Talk about why catch is important in a lineup in a scenario like this. He does an eloquent job of explaining why they needed catch to make sure that they would have strong team fight. And then he goes, since it's such an educational stream, would you mind explaining to me what is bukkake? And, and
you were hosting the show, right?
Yeah, I'm hosting. And another guy's on, I don't know if Gods. He's incredible. He's an incredible analyst. So it's me and him, and then the guy who asked it, his name's Black. He's actually still competing in Dota, and every now and then he'll come on to actually his name is Dominic. He'll occasionally come on as an analyst, and he's a good analyst too. And we explained it the best that we could without taking it too far. And it was one of those moments where it could have gone really bad, but it just didn't. And Starladder was totally fucking cool with it, and I didn't get in trouble.
You were in the right place at the right time, because Starladder a little edgier than some of the other productions. I'm glad that they were able to have fun in a moment like that, and I bet he wasn't the only person learning that term for the first time. You educated a lot of young fans, Rich.
They instantly after that moment, the Dota community has constantly made jokes like calling me 3 good and stuff like that in honor of the fallen legend, the man who never said no, never backed down from a joke, the legend that is James.
James, he's a special one. He is braver than any other host I've ever met in esports.
James is scared of nothing. Yeah.
He's scared of nothing, and he's still killing it over in Sweden. Okay, so what was the transition then, going from Rocket League to Hearthstone to World of Warcraft to Dubai, Ukraine to Call of Duty? Where did you slide into the Call of Duty world?
So COD, it was always weird. So the honest truth is nobody, I never knew what my job was at MLG for the longest time, and Call of Duty was always a responsibility of mine, but nobody knew what my responsibility was, and that allowed me to start getting talent work. It was the truth of it. It was one of these things where for the longest time, and actually until Dino came, Dino changed my title to talent, but it was always kind of, I was there and I was willing to do stuff, and if you and Ben ever handed me something, I would just be like, hey, like, I'm here, let me talk. And that's why I started with Snapchat, and my first event was in Florida. It was in Orlando. I was doing Snapchat duty, and I remember Brian was there too. Well, my first event was the 2016 MLG Worlds, it was called, with Call of Duty, Smite, and I was at the Smite stage, Dota, and Smash. I don't know if you remember that one in New Orleans.
Yes.
That was my first ever event that I got to go to. And then
New Orleans was your first event?
Yeah.
That event I will always hate because I had to leave my honeymoon early to attend because it was MLG's 100th.
Yep.
And I couldn't celebrate the 100th the way I wanted to.
Yep. Because I remember, because if you think about it, it's right around the same time. Because right when you got married, that was when I casted for the first time. Then they were like, fuck it, we're going to bring this dude to this event. And that event for me was really eye-opening because I just got to see so much stuff about how an event worked, and I wanted to be a part of it. That one was really fun for me. And then the other event that I had a lot of fun with that I didn't get to go to was the CSGO tournament. The CSGO major that you were a part of. Yeah. That one, I was actually the only guy left in the office, and my job was anytime something went wrong, I was there on the computers to send it over. So I was cutting out images of players. I was making sure that everything was right. And that was actually thrilling, to say the least, because there were a lot of fires, and to be the last line of defense was pretty cool.
You're like arguably the most important person.
And nobody knows who you are.
Right. Just the background superhero.
Yeah, it was cool. And it's just something that I think until you do that job or rely on somebody who's working that job, you don't know that it exists. So it's pretty eye-opening to me.
So what is your position at Call of Duty now? You just did the London event. Are you going to be doing more this year? Can you talk about that yet?
Yeah, I actually feel like I probably did a pretty bad job announcing things, because a lot of people are like, hey, we hope you called. I'm doing I'm there I'm probably going to miss one more for the rest of the, basically stuff was just coming together. I knew I wanted to do the Dota major, which is why I missed opening week.
Okay.
And then I just waited I didn't want to announce before opening week and then not be there. I felt like that would be weird. So I waited to announce that I was doing Call of Duty League. I'll be on the desk through the entire season. I do have one weekend off that I'm probably going to use for another Dota event. I'm just not sure which one yet. But besides that, I'll be at every single event for the rest of the year.
Nice.
Very excited.
Which one are you looking forward to most? Because we're going to Atlanta next, right?
I'm excited for Atlanta, but I'm obviously most excited for... I've never done a show in New York before.
New York? Yeah.
Yeah.
The NYSL is going to do it right. I'm pretty excited for this one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about London, though, because I did the kickoff in Minnesota, and they were loud while the rocker was out, but the rest of the time it was a pretty quiet venue. It seemed that in London, talent had a little bit of a tough job doing just their work because they couldn't hear each other. They couldn't get an interview done without the crowd interrupting.
They were awesome, dude. They were actually so awesome. I don't know how much, you know how it is when you're at the venue, you're never 100% sure what it looks like to stream as far as the crowd's concerned. That was one of the most fun events I've ever been at for Call of Duty. They were obviously...
Describe the venue for us first. Set the scene, because I was working Overwatch. I'm catching up on the VODs today. But all the camera shots I saw, it didn't look like there was an empty seat in the house.
Yeah, there really weren't. I mean, the thing was there were a lot of stadium seats, so it kind of went up really high, and those weren't necessarily all full. But ground floor, it was tough to get seats. It was packed. You basically had the desk. And one of the things I liked about it was you had the desk, and then all the main seats were right there in between the desk and the stage. So you know how it is when you're actually like on a
Amongst the
desk.
people.
Like, yeah. I mean, I could reach out and give someone a high five. So you definitely felt that energy, and anything that people heard was through our mics. There wasn't a crowd mic. So the fact that people were hearing stuff is bonkers, because those headsets are designed to not pick up that noise.
Yeah.
That's how loud these folks were. Also, for people that are saying like, hope TP can join and stuff. So I'm not sure if I'm supposed to necessarily say this. Carlton might like slap me on the butt later, but the basic idea to the desk right now, just to give a little bit of insight, is Lottie is host. I'm kind of like that. I'm the equivalent of like what Zoe used to be on like last season of Overwatch League, right? Like I'm the analyst that's down to party, right? Like that's kind of how they packaged it to me. They were like, "Yo, do you want to be Zoe?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I do. Can I have her wardrobe? Because she wears the best shit ever."
She's got the goods.
Yeah. And then Nameless is going to be the constant expert, right? So we're all kind of working together to give a balanced desk. I was actually initially going to be on the opening week desk with TP. I wasn't replacing TP. Like Tyler, when he is free, will probably be on the desk. We're looking for like we were going to rotate in that fourth person, but the three of us are going to be there every week. So whether that fourth person's going to be a player, another expert inside of the space, that's what the plan for the desk is. It's kind of what we came up with on the off season. I'm a big fan of it because, I mean, obviously I'm on it, so I like it. But on top of that, it gives a lot of room to include a lot of people on the desk and have a lot of people there.
Mage Buns in the chat says, "Don't worry, Rich." Excuse me. Don't worry, Rich. All the secrets you spill will be kept between chat and the podcast. You're safe.
Trust.
Carlton will. He definitely did not subscribe last week and isn't watching this right now. You're fine.
I'm gonna get a text in like 2 minutes. Like, totally. Shut the heck up, bro.
Don't you ever mention TP's mouth. Sorry. So TP.
His mouth.
Yeah. He's got a great smile. No, I loved having Tyler with us in Minnesota. I feel like you bring a different vibe to the desk, a little bit of energy, and I think the combo of you two will be even better down the line. So, Carlton, if you're listening, bring them both to Atlanta, please. I will be in Atlanta. Bring them to Atlanta.
That would be
Atlanta. All right, so we kicked off the weekend. We know Chicago and Dallas are going to be playing quite a bit. What were the other matches that you were excited to see?
Well, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, I really thought Surge was going to come out and be way better than they were the first week.
It's like a fantasy football roster that puts up no points. It's like, you know, all the big names. You got them at a great draft pick position, but they're just not putting up.
If you think about it, though, the roster makes the roster makes no sense. You have a bunch of players that have typically been that dirty player that's never going to be a kill whore, that's never going to just slay. And you have way too many of them on one team. And I don't think that works in the current setup of 5-man Call of Duty. I think that there are inherent team problems when you can have Octane drop a 1.5 to lose. He dropped 140 kills in a series for the L. Or no, they won that series. But I think that I actually hope that they try Pander. That I don't know if you remember Pander.
Yeah.
From back when he was going on all those crazy runs. He has been like a kingmaker in Call of Duty. His first duo is Octane.
Okay.
And then Octane gets his breakout performance. Casey's kind of left behind. Pander's left behind. And then Sam goes on to be one of the best in the league. One of the most reliable players to play that role. And he's right up there with guys like Slasher. He's up there with guys like Formal. He's up there with guys like Arcides, right? Then you have Pander. He's still down there. Then his new duo becomes GodRX. And they are consistently making it out of open. And they're doing a great job. They always put on a show, but they never quite crack it through to like be up on the main stage and go on like a very deep run. Now GodRX, obviously on Minnesota. He's got his chance now.
Yeah.
Pander is Seattle Surge's sub. I would like to see, because that guy can come out and just slay. And I think that if they maybe tried him, I'm not sure who you would switch him on for.
Yeah, that's what I was going to give you shit for. I was like, all right, that's cute and all. You got young talent. We got Pander, who's been around for a while. But who are you going to bench to put Pander in the lineup?
Ian? I don't know. I like, that's a really hard thing to say. But right? you basically, you need to pick somebody who, I think Ian and App.
So Enable or Apathy?
Well, no. I don't think Apathy. But I think you look at Enable and you look at Apathy, and these are two players that you want to have on your roster for the long haul, because every single year I feel like Apathy never performs below his standard. It can be the most stressful situation, and he's always Apathy. And that's why he wins championships. And that's someone that you always want to have on your squad, and you want to be able to play the way that makes him the most comfortable player that he can be.
But I will say that Brian, I've cast hundreds of Brian's games. He's an X factor because he's not consistent. So I would just say that this guy is either going to drop 40 or he's going to disappear in your search and drop a donut and then come back and drop 13 kills in your next one. It's like he's the guy that wins you a championship when he turns it up. But that consistency isn't there throughout the entirety of a league season.
But right now he looks good.
He did. He did look real good in London.
And on top of, because I do agree with you, I feel like he doesn't usually look good early, but by the end he is always that X factor. He is one of the reasons that you see his teams run away with it. I feel like Slacked looked deceivingly bad. I don't think that Slacked actually. I think Slacked is just playing the way that he plays Call of Duty. That doesn't necessarily line up with what the rest of his team is doing. And also, I think that they have a lot to learn, right? I think that this is still very early in the year. Mm-hmm. Their performance is definitely... There are no excuses for their performance in particular, but there are a lot of things about the meta that aren't set yet. That was why it was so interesting to see Seth play the way that he... Scump looked absurd. Like, he actually looked the best he's ever looked. I would go that far to say did you, oh my God, Chris, did you see the round 3?
Scump is peak Scump again? Is that what you're saying to me right now?
He's close to it. If he can keep this up, there's no way that you look at Seth in the S&D with Paris.
Okay.
Against Paris. That round 3, you look at Seth and he's playing beyond the meta. And that is something that you would not see a player like him do all of the time in recent years. Would he be able to come out and slay? Yes. I mean, he is one of the best. It is a weird, physical players in Call of Duty, right? Kinesthetic. He is one of those guys that twitch reflexes are always going to be there. He's always going to be able to bang with the best of them. But when you looked at him as far as thought went, I would never say that he was one of the headiest players.
He didn't need to. His gun skill was good enough to get him out of jams.
And that's what the team needed him for, right? But you look at him at this event, and they're playing Search, and he's playing beyond the meta. The guy looked like he was Nicolas Cage in Next, was what I said. He actually looked.
Did anyone see that movie, by the way? Did anyone see Next?
No, I saw that movie.
I don't get it, but I'm gonna go with it. Was Nicolas Cage like a badass in this movie?
Nicolas Cage can see the future in that movie, and he just keeps rewinding the day. So he lives days perfectly. It's Groundhog's Day with Nicolas Cage, and at the end he jumps out of a plane in Vegas, and I think he has sex with 30 girls or some shit. That was Seth in this Search and Destroy.
Jumping out of planes and getting it done.
Dude, it was so crazy to see him look that good. I think it was some of the best Call of Duty we've seen out of him in a little while, and I think that team overall is a particularly interesting team, and I'm curious to see if they're going to be able to stay this good as more people figure out the game. But when you start to see somebody not playing the meta well, but actually understanding where other teams are in the meta and countering it, that is next level.
I think the Huntsmen kind of proved they're head and shoulders above the rest of the teams that were there in London. Mm-hmm. But now we get to see FaZe again in Atlanta. And that's where I'm really looking to see where does everyone truly stand. But you're right. They look good. Scump look good. But also you can say that right now things haven't been tough for the Huntsmen. They made their point in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. They made their statement. They proved to everyone they were better than Dallas. They won the fans back over. And then when it came to London, it seemed like people were kind of booing the Empire. But everyone, even the Royal Ravens fans, were also Huntsman fans in the building.
Yeah, I mean, it's Scump, right? And formal. So I think in a lot of ways they're still going to pull that old Optic fan base. And then I think a lot of people, with the drama that happened with Crimsix and all of that, just decided they picked a side very quickly. And I think when you're not in a home arena for Dallas, it's pretty obvious that a lot of people are going to choose Seth and Formal in that one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Dallas Empire is a really good team, though. Like, I actually do think that they're going to be in the top tier of teams in no time at all. I think that they'll have a pretty big following as well. I don't think that they're in trouble. I think they've had a tough matchup against Huntsman. I don't think it's going to be necessarily that way forever, but I do think that they're going to be going head to head quite a bit.
And you can see the standings already. This was a big weekend for them after a rough start. Yes, they lost to Chicago and FaZe, the two toughest teams back in Minnesota. Finishing second was good enough for 30 points, and that now has them tied for third. One of the shockers for me, though, was Paris Legion, because they did not start their group strong, and then they turned it back on. I didn't get a chance to watch all of their games. I'm honestly about 60% through their VODs at this point. What did you see from the Australian boys in this Paris Legion squad?
So the Australians look really good. I think that one of the weird things was it was always hard to assess how good they were because they didn't necessarily have. I think of like Cat, dude, right? Like he's one of those players in his sport that doesn't necessarily always have the players around him to make him look like the best player. You'll hear commentators talk about that a lot. That was what these Australian players were kind of forced to deal with in the old setup. They didn't have players around them that allowed them to shine, and now they do. I think that Paris, as of right now, I actually think that they're the best Dom team. I don't think that that's necessarily what you can rely on, though.
Right.
I mean, it's good to be good in the swing matchup.
Game mode that is only played once, where the other two are played twice. So
yeah.
if you're going to have a strength, ideally not game 3.
But their game against Chicago was so weird. They're not a bad search team either. Which is also very Australian, right? Like
they've been clutching game 5s as well.
Yeah, they've been looking really good. I mean, even Nameless said on the desk, he was like, "Okay, they need to steal a respawn." They didn't steal the respawns; they robbed the bank in the hard points, and they're the only team to beat Chicago Huntsmen up to that moment in hard point, and they do it twice in one series. That says a lot about the potential of this team. It also says a lot about the fact that I think Chicago didn't know what to expect for Paris, maybe didn't practice for Paris as much, but then they get to the search, and that's what you expect Paris to take. And that was the exact moment where I'm like, wait, this is Seth looking like the best player we've ever seen him look like. Chicago was able to take the search. And then also, the Dom is something that the first search, it was nuts. It was nuts to actually watch that. Chicago takes the Dom, right? And that's the reason that they're able to take the series. 2 searches and the Dom. And that series is just flipped on its head. I just said that I thought Paris was the best Dom team. And then Huntsman's able to take that. They don't take the hard points. They hadn't dropped the hard point. Like, that was the weirdest series of the entire weekend. I'm still sweating thinking of it, Chris. Oh, wait. I can't hear you right now.
I muted myself because I'm a dumbass. Okay. Great call. Shout out to Redbeard, who I muted myself in the chat so I could type to you.
Wait, you muted yourself again?
No, I didn't. Am I still muted? Check. All right, we're good. Redbeard, thank you for joining us in the chat. He said, or there's a lot of people saying the T1 Daughters were the Paris Legion. And for those who don't remember, the T1 Daughters were the Australian team that came and just were wrecking everything at Champs and caught everyone off guard. Dens made a big impact there. But if you haven't been watching Call of Duty yet this year, go watch this Paris team, because they were number 12 out of 12 on everyone's power rankings coming into the first event. Kismet immediately becomes one of my favorite players in the league by talking shit and being super rowdy. And they don't back down against the biggest teams, but they also seem to play down to their opponents at times against some of the lower teams. So I feel like this is going to be a squad that has potential to be there on Championship Sundays in that final match every time, or it could disappear if they slip up in group play.
I'm really not sure what to expect of this squad yet. They're definitely one of the most exciting teams, though. They're one of those teams that very easily could be in the top tier of teams, or could very easily end up in the middle of the pack, depending on how they actually approach the game. Because when you see them playing down to other teams, that all comes off of how they're assessing the game, how they're looking at the meta, and how they're actually approaching these situations. The skill's there with this team, and I think that they balance each other out really well. But if they don't have a good take on how you need to play Call of Duty as the meta continues to evolve, that's where they'll fall behind, in my opinion, as of right now. Also, this question's really interesting, Chris.
Which
the
one?
the Arcity sniping over formal for some maps. It was actually answered, but people didn't. I don't think people heard the answer very much. Seth was actually talking about it, and the reason that it's happening so much is they're still very like obviously Alec plays very well in situations like that. I basically what Seth said is they just talk about it and they're like, "Hey, who wants it?" And Formal hasn't ever been like, "Yeah, I want to right now." And Alex steps up and does it. Nameless said something off camera that I thought was particularly interesting. He has a theory that basically Formal isn't doing it because Formal wants to learn search better so they win a championship. It's almost like he can fall back on it on any time to win, which I mean, if you think about it, he's never really fallen behind in that department.
Right.
But if he forces himself to be in uncomfortable situations where you can potentially slip up in a search and they learn the game better because of it, maybe it's valuable in the long term. Maybe it's an investment in making sure that they're the best search team that they can be. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if there's any merit into that.
I'm gonna call bullshit. Informal's been in it too long. He's gonna know search at this point.
It's interesting though. I like
think
that
though,
idea.
like I think of it as CS French teams, especially where you have two players that can run the op at any moment, and you just give the hot hand. And if you have a quieter player, normally you may want them on the snipe. I don't know what the situation is like on the comms, but is Formal actually going to be one of the comm leaders at this point? One of the strategists? He seemed to be very comfortable with an AR in hand, taking very weird angles with just peek shots. And he didn't necessarily have to get the kill all the time, but a lot of times he was scouting, and that was a role where he would shine back in the Halo days, was a commentator and getting the team aligned. Even if he didn't finish the kill, he would set it up for somebody else. But maybe Ant's right. Maybe Formal is trying to just totally relearn how to play Search and Destroy. But I have to think at this point, he's been in the game for quite a while, and it's not Search and Destroy that's been holding him back from a rank.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting idea. I think that there's some merit to it to at least think about the potential that you could gain from something like that. But I also do think it's one of those things where Alec feels comfortable with it. He says that he wants it. They give it to him.
Right.
And I've said this a few times. I think I said it on the desk. I'm not 100% sure. I know I said it to Hector. If right now we were playing fantasy, make your own team, you have all the budget in the world, you get to just pick all of your players right now, the first player I would pick for a team is Arcity's 100%.
Wow.
I think, yeah, I
Alec,
would pick
number
Arcity.
one out of all of the players on the planet. Why?
I think the most important thing about Alec that nobody will ever talk about is he can play with legitimately anyone in the league, and he is always going to be a positive force on the team. He's one of the few players that I think plays with Gunless very well. And Gunless obviously has a little bit of a rep for not being the easiest player to play with at all times, especially if you're losing.
Yep.
And Alec, I look at the first person to hoist a trophy with him back when they were E-United with that stack. And then you look and he played with him for quite some time, found success. And now they're back on this team and they look fantastic again. So Alec is always that player where I know he can play with anyone, so he's a good first pick for that reason. I think that he can play with the egos of Seth. I think he can play with an ego that Gunless is going to have and somewhat subdue it and allow the team to be balanced.
Damn. You know what? I was going to go Octane as my guy, but now I'm looking and I'm thinking they can do the same job, right?
And they are the two best players at that role, in my opinion. Slasher, obviously, too, is going to always be up there. But if you ever talk to Sam or Alec, they're constantly talking about how the only time that they feel afraid in a matchup or they feel like they're losing control is when they're playing against each other. The fact that they're not on the same, the day that they are on the same team, that is a team that can't be beaten. One day it will happen. One day it will happen, and that team will never lose, ever.
Was there standout SMG at this event? Because I was watching earlier, and I was just watching back the Gorillas versus Surge match. It went to Game 5, Round 11. Very good match if you guys haven't seen it, loaded up on YouTube. But I felt like Lacefield is a guy I can't wait to watch more. He's so aggressive, and he pushes smokes, and he just is catching people off guard. And then all of a sudden, the rest of his team's dead, and they lose the round. But I'm like, this is a guy that, if he keeps playing this fast and you play to his speed, they're going to cause problems to some of the more I guess, stagnant teams, the teams that have their positions and hold their locations down.
Obviously, the name that's popping up in chat is very tempting to say, but I like talking about Lacefield because you even go back to when he was playing on Ghost Gaming. He's sort of a feast or famine player for me. When you actually when you want, he plays so freaking fast that he's either going to look like the best player that exists or he's going to shoot himself in the own foot, and that's why he looks so streaky at times. But I do think he's very good. I actually said that I thought he was very good, and Ant was like, he basically told me I was fried. He was like, dude, he's so inconsistent. I agree with you though. I thought he looked very good at this event.
And this is, I need to come back and say, I've only watched 4 of their 5 games from that series. I did not watch their second series, so this is based on very limited info compared to some of the other players. The whole chat is saying Envoy. And first of all, are you saying Envoy or Envoy? Because I asked him, he doesn't know how to say his own name.
I went to call him Envoy by reflex, but everybody's calling him Envoy now.
So, and this is something Envoy. We have control over, because he said he's down with either one, and I was like, if you're gonna try and be an adult one day, you should probably say the word Envoy, right?
Envoy is the correct name. It's the correct. I like him a lot though. I met him for the first time. I met him for the first time at this event because his breakout was obviously when I wasn't there. And I was just like, yeah, this dude's cool. I like him a lot.
He's the best.
He's got a good attitude, man. He really does. And, for usually the newer players in the league, I feel like tend to not always have the best attitude. And if you're starting off on that foot, he's going places and he's a freak. I was watching him. I was just like, who the heck is this guy? He's so good.
I just want to see his thumbs afterwards. Like, does he ice them? Are they sore? Because he's never standing still. The boy is always on the move.
He's crazy, man. He's pretty wild. I do think that there's a lot to say about him. But also, I mean, when you're under you got to look at the whole picture, right? I'm not taking any credit away from him. But if you were going to be under the protection of Alec, you get to do a lot of things. Like, that whole team will continue to look good because the squad is incredible. Nameless actually made this joke. He was like, yeah, you're feeling pretty good when your worst player is gunless. I was like, wait, no. Like, can you even say that? It's like, but you have to pick a worst player on that team, and no matter who you pick and call them a worst player,
it sounds offensive.
Like the stupidest thing. Yeah, it's like the stupidest thing ever. Imagine going like, oh, Scump's your worst player. It's like, wait, what? You say Envoys are your worst player. It's like, no, you can't say that. You can't say Alex. Like, that team is working so well right now. I think that Maven was the one who said he's scared with this team potentially getting into a place where they do start losing and all of a sudden they will all butt heads and that will be their downfall. That is the only hypothetical scenario that you can come up with right now that would make this team lose. Or that
just personalities, the egos could get in.
Yeah. And I think that is reasonable to bring that up. And that's why I actually think Sender is more important as a coach than most people will give him credit for, because he's very different than Tyler, for example, right? Yep. I think that Tyler is one of the best coaches. I would say right now that Tyler's potentially the second best coach to, like, in Call of Duty, right? If you have him coaching, I think that Crowder's
use gamer tags here. Who's Tyler?
TP. Sorry. I think that
TP one of the best coaches. Got it.
One of the best coaches, but I think if you look at Crowder, he's probably the best. I mean, the results just don't lie, right?
He's almost in a GM position as well, because he picked his players. He's going above the normal responsibilities of a head coaching job.
Yeah, and he doesn't go by replays anymore, right? He goes by Crowder now.
Right. Yeah. So Replay switched his name when there was another FaZe member named Replays. So he's Crowder these days. But I think FaZe is still the team to beat, despite the hype in London for the Huntsman.
Yeah.
And now we have to settle it. We have to see these two teams play each other.
I don't even know when that happens, right? Does it happen? It doesn't happen in Atlanta, right?
Let me just bring this back.
I don't think that it happens in Atlanta. I will say the one thing that I'm kind of ignorant on right now is what the schedules
All
are
right, so
like?
yes, no, we actually have Atlanta FaZe and Chicago Huntsmen, Florida Mutineers, London Royal Ravens,
Ooh.
Minnesota Rocker, Optic LA, Paris Legion, and Toronto Ultra going to Atlanta. That's February 22nd to the 23rd. Tickets are on sale right now, by the way, if you guys haven't picked them up. But
Dude, that's so
does
stacked.
chat, does it happen in groups? Is this the group that they fixed to put them together, or do we have to wait till later in the season? Because I feel like this is a match we have to wait until the bracket. Okay, they will play if they move on, and the bracket says H Deluxe 9.
I mean, that seems like the grand final, right? I think that one of the squads has a real chance to prove themselves at this one, though. You talk about FaZe, you talk about Chicago. They're not teams that have to prove themselves. I think that they've already proven that they are in a tier of their own currently. They're in that like S+ tier, if you will.
Yep.
A team that could break into that by getting to the grand final, even, in my opinion, is the Ravens. I think that this team's very close to being there. If Wuskin plays the way that he has been playing,
The man's a freak.
dude, what
The man's a freak.
It's actually insane, bro. I mean,
I didn't
he's
know it was
never been-
possible for him to get better looking than Scraps, but he did. And now I didn't think he could get better than Scraps in the game, but he did. Wuskin is a monster right now.
Dude, he's actually nuts, bro. It's crazy because I mean, back when we were even both working together on COD, I think you were hosting the year that they broke out for when they were on Fnatic with Tommy and Sunny B. That year was. Wuskin was never the superstar in that team.
No, he'd have some good search games though. Like that was his strength, I'd say back then. Even
he fit in the team very well, and everybody was excited to see what he could do. But also, I feel like it's one of those things where, his brother was the flashier player, so he got a lot of the attention. And then on top of that, you kind of get very easily pulled into the twin hype. So you would basically just kind of always talk about like, okay, like twin hype, you were grouping them together, you weren't really paying, but that is completely silenced now that we've gotten to the CDL. I think Wuskin is one of the players that has looked the best.
He's just been so fun to watch, and a guy that he can do it all. I love seeing the sniper in his hand. I'm like, just give him more snipers. I'm cool with it. Every search and destroy, I will watch his screen only the entire time. I'm good with it. The chat is saying Dylan is London's best player, and I think that's what it's going to take is a team where you are arguing again who's the best player, who's the worst player, like the Huntsman. And if you're arguing over answers, it's a really good sign because it's showing that you have a very well-rounded squad.
Dylan is the closer right now for that squad. If he wasn't able to do what he was doing, they wouldn't be able to take it to the next level. I think that is important to bring up. And also, if you look and you're actually any game that Wuskin didn't drop like 40, somebody else picked it up. And I think that what you said is super important. That's what makes a team move into that top tier, is when somebody has a bad game, somebody else will always have that on game. You can rely on the team as a whole. You can the whole is greater than all the individual parts. And I think that the Ravens have that potential.
Can we talk a little bit about the subliners, because they did end up getting 10 points and they looked very strong actually in their opening match. Who was it? The Legion they played the first time around, but then they started to slide a little bit, and after 2 events they only have 1 match win to their name. They were able to take the domination away from FaZe Clan back in Minnesota, but then got beat down pretty heavily in the other 3 games. So where are the subliners at right now? Is it time to panic for this squad, or do you feel like this is a team that could climb back in with the mix of teams like the Royal Ravens, the Legion? I would even put the Mutineers in that group.
I don't know what Revan's doing, dude. I think Revan's I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. They have no idea what they're doing as a team right now. I think you look at them individually as a group of players. There is no way that this roster cannot be good. My initial reaction, if I saw a team like this not performing well, it is still obviously very early, I would assume that there was something going on personally between the players. But I just saw them in the airport. I'm probably going to grab dinner with them this week, by the way, if you want to come.
I'm coming.
Yeah, they seem like they get along pretty gosh darn well. So I maybe they're getting along too well. Maybe they're just enjoying New York too much. I can't figure it out. It doesn't seem like they know how to play Call of Duty yet. But I look at this roster, and if I didn't look at anything in the league, I would make this roster again. The team is awesome. Like, that is such a good lineup for a team. And as a New Yorker, I'm proud to have all of those players represent my city. I do not know what the problem is with this team. They came out and looked like every single series they look like a completely different team. They're the least consistent group of individuals on the planet right now.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on here with the subliners because, of course, we're New Yorkers now. I mean, look at the lineup, guys. We got Accuracy, Attach, Temp, Zero, Zuma, all on the squad, and yet they're just not putting up the W's. You got Sensor on the bench, you got Happy on the bench, and some people in the chat are saying put Doug in. I don't think it's put Doug in time yet. We had him on the show last week, and as much as I love Doug, he hasn't been doing the VOD reviews. He's not in the office as often as these other guys are. And I think you need to fix the problems that the team has right now in a different way than just subbing in a person. You got to watch the VOD and see what's really happening with this team.
Nobody on this team looks like they know what they're doing right now. Like, it's not subbing someone in does not give. I think subbing someone in can be a very important tool. If you look at 100 Thieves last year, the team was already pretty good with Pharaoh, but when they subbed in Priesta, it changed the entire dynamic of the team. It was an equal trade in some ways, but the fresh eyeballs, the fresh change, somebody who's hungry just completely flipped stuff around, and all of a sudden you were in a situation where it looked like a new squad. And that was where 100 Thieves looked good. That is not the situation here.
But look at the subliners numbers. They went 3-1 against Paris Legion. They win that match. Then they played the London Royal Ravens, who you said could compete for that top spot, and they take them to a game 5.
Yeah.
So I'm saying it's not panic time. I say this team is okay.
No, I don't necessarily. Well, I agree and disagree.
I think we're okay, but what worries me is when you beat Paris Legion 3-1 in the early parts of the group, but then when it matters, you get 3-0'd. What changed? Because it's the same team, and the maps can't have that big of an impact, can they?
They look like they don't know how to play the game. Is the problem, Chris? Like, it honestly, like, obviously they're going to be able to come out and sometimes rely on the fact that they're just good Call of Duty players. But I feel like sometimes you would watch and it was like, do you even know where the next hill is? Like, do you know where you should be rotating right now? Like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing because they come out and, like you said, they look great, and then you can literally run it back. And I feel like if you played the same series 100 times with this team, you would see 100 different results. You'll see Zuma drop 40, and then you'll see him drop a donut. I just don't understand what is going on with the squad at all. And you talk about VOD review and stuff like that. That seems to be the problem. They need to go back to the drawing board and actually figure out how they are going to play this game more so than look at changing up any players or changing up anything on the roster. I don't think that it's time for a sub at all. And I kind of agree with that sentiment of it's not panic time. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're looking to trade players. You're looking to actually come up with a way to win the game instead of just exist in the game.
All right, next team we got to talk about here is the LA Gorillas, because this is a squad that I love because of Aches, and I'll never not love them because of Aches. He talks shit, he puts up with the booze, he is 100% Aches, he's never going to change, and he surrounded himself with a team that is fired up by the negative energy from the community, and I think it's great to have a villain. Unfortunately, it's way more exciting when the villain can compete with the good guys in a finals match, and so far they have not had a great start. When you look at what went down, they got 3-0'd by Huntsman to open the weekend. Not the way they wanted that match to go, but then they played the Surge, and this is where they should have won the Search and Destroy. I'm saying it here. They were the team that was supposed to go and play Dallas, and I think they would show up against Dallas in a way better way than they did against the Huntsman. Should we panic about the Gorillas? What's happening with this team?
I mean, it kind of is what you expect, right? I mean, look, you got Aqua and you got Saints. They're never the smartest players in Respawn, but they are always going to be able to, they're going to kill like crazy. I think you rely a lot on Decimate on this team. I think that's kind of the problem that I have right now with the team. I love Decimate as a player, but I feel like there's maybe not enough support to constantly make sure Decimate's going to have a good game. And when you saw Decimate have a good game, I feel like pretty much every time they were able to grab a win. I like their bench a lot too. I like if you look at the bench, you can recreate Ghost Gaming, right? Which is a very good team. It was a very good team. So I think that there is a lot of potential there. Aqua looked really good though this weekend. Looked really, really good.
He's my guy. Always been an Aqua fan. It might just be me and being an old man with old names on this team. I mean, Ricky Riot Shield, he's on the bench right now, but Ricky broke out in pre Black Ops 2, changed his name in Black Ops 2 to Ricky, and I've been a super fan of him ever since. You look at Aches, he knows how to win. He's always showed up at champs. He's knocked out the biggest names in the game. Will they eventually get it together? That is the TBD. And if someone in the chat can link us, I really want to know how is Atlanta going to play out, because we know the 8 teams that are going to be competing there once again in Atlanta next week. And we got FaZe, we've got Dallas Empire, Florida Mutineers, LA Gorillas, Minnesota Rocker, New York Subliners, Optic LA, and the Seattle Surge. I know the Gorillas can beat the Surge. They went to Game 5, Round 11 with them. So I know they can probably match up pretty well against the New York Subliners, who have looked streaky as hell. Minnesota Rocker, I think they technically should have beat back in Minnesota if it wasn't for that forfeit. Mm-hmm. And Optic LA, Florida Mutineers, those are toss-ups for me. I'm not confident in wins over Dallas Empire or Atlanta FaZe. But I think there's a very strong chance it's a Gorillas team that actually makes it out of the group at the next event. And I might be the only one on the planet feeling this way, but it could happen, Rich Campbell.
Wait, let me see. Did somebody just link it? Oh, no, never mind. Somebody linked that Blatz is screaming for challengers. Yeah, we actually saw Mad Cat in challengers too. I think we're going to see this like a whole bunch with the players who are on the bench. That was actually one of the reasons that it took a while to get in hype battles, right? Because Mad Cat had to lose before they could start that up. Mad Cat's a freak as well. It was awesome to watch him play in the hype battle.
Can I pause real quick? Everything I said about the groups was for the LA event, not the Atlanta event.
That's why I was trying to pull it up.
Stupid brain. Thank you.
It's tricky. Yeah, it's tricky to actually like kind of keep all that stuff in your head.
Hey, Call of Duty League, maybe you should put it on your website. Like, just make it really easy to access.
Is this it? I mean, it needs a graphic that's easier to understand. Someone in chat linked it. Group play: Rocker versus Legion, Ravens versus Mutineers, Chicago versus Ultra.
There we go. I found it.
Is this it?
We found it.
Okay, so wait, did you put up the actual group? I'm looking at the schedule right now.
Got it. I should
like the group graphic is going to be better than the schedule, but this I can kind of figure out with. So I mean, you expect FaZe to come out and be able to body OG. I think that's right now. I think that Ultra fundamentally is just flawed. That team is fundamentally flawed. I don't expect
10 players, not really sure of who should be starting for them.
Why does anybody think that's a good idea?
Because it worked for the London Spitfire in the Overwatch League. But the only difference is the London Spitfire brought in 2 teams that were full squads to then have to compete of who would be in the starting lineup versus just bringing in 10 random pieces.
Yeah, you literally had I get that, but it's so different. You had 2 different teams. You were allowed to do that, and then on top of that, it's Overwatch. Like, it's a completely different game. Like, obviously, different things are gonna work. Like, this does not work for Call of Duty, especially just rotating. Yeah, Bance looked fine, but it puts you in a situation, and Metals is a great player as well. It puts you in a situation where you have to think with this results-oriented mindset, which just isn't going to work for Call of Duty. I always did something that's always stuck me. You know, I play a lot of poker. There's the old saying of don't think Roddy, do not think results oriented. You are going to make the wrong play sometimes and lose when you're playing a card game. And it's right in front of you in the card game. You know the math, you know the percentage that you're going to be able to win. The same thing has to be applied even in competitive scenarios. Sometimes you're going to go for the wrong play. The timing's just not going to work out. Even if you're thinking beyond the meta, you will get punished and you will lose. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't go for that play again. You can never do anything besides think in a results-oriented manner with recency bias based off of the 2 games that you've seen off of one player, and then you're making a substitution. The team just can't get better. If they keep doing it, they're going to lose nonstop.
I think the Bance move probably was predetermined before Minnesota.
That's what people said.
Yeah, and I've heard this rumor from others is like Bance might even come in for the second match in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Instead, they waited until the next event. They don't have a lot of time. They've got this week, and then they probably fly out Wednesday to Atlanta for next week. And looking at Toronto Ultra, you got Paris Legion, Minnesota Rocker, and Huntsman in the group. I put them fourth. I put them fourth behind Rocker at third. I think Legion 2, Huntsman number 1 in Group B.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I honestly have in group if just running down the schedule, I think we see Legion win. I think they're looking really good. I think we see the Ravens win, Chicago wins.
So
FaZe wins.
Legion over Rocker.
Yep.
London Royal Ravens over the Florida Mutineers.
Yep.
Huntsman over Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And FaZe over Optic LA.
Yeah, I actually think that that's like the easiest call to make with predictions if you're just going to be safe. I think that the biggest chance for an upset would be Rocker, and this is a team that I believe in quite a bit. I believe in Minnesota because I like GodRx. I like him a lot. I really think he's a good player.
I like Silly. I like the whole team. I
like Silly as a person. Silly's one of my favorite people.
But as a player, you're a GodRx super fan.
Yeah, just because I've always cheered for his teams with Pander because Pander's a good friend of mine. And I feel like I've watched more of his games because of that. I've like put a focus on him in the past. And now to see him on the main stage, I'm really happy for him. And I know that he has what it takes.
Assault is a guy, too, on that AR. I mean, there was moments where people were arguing, is Assault the best assault rifle player in Call of Duty at the moment?
Assault sometimes looks insane, yeah.
When he was playing with Aches, I mean, they did work. But I don't know. When I look at this squad, I'm just not thinking it's super sexy. There's like no star power on the team yet for me.
Well, that's also like a lot of that's going to be too because they have some of the younger phenoms, right? So you got a bunch of players who maybe did well last year, so they're kind of going to be in my blind spot as well. And yeah, I feel like you can say no star power, but look at Silly's track record the past couple of years. There's a reason that Silly keeps rebuilding rosters and they keep on winning.
Right.
Can I say what that is yet? No, I actually don't know how the heck he's doing it. I mean, how the heck did he put together? Do you remember that E United roster before he did what he did with that E United roster when it went on the tear in Atlanta?
No,
that E United roster.
They weren't even on my radar.
You know where they played? The PlayStation Experience, and Pac-Man was on that team, and Pac-Man was their best player. And then they let Silly rebuild the team, and he found Gunless, Arcides, and Pristini. Like, what?
And that has always been his greatest asset. Was Silly was a guy who had to grind just to get into the pro lobbies early on in his career, and he wasn't someone that would just suck up to you to play with the best of the best. He would go find that next level of talent, bring them in, groom them, and get them ready to compete. I'm looking for his career wins though. How many championships does this man have to his name? Because of course he's got the big one. He's got the ring.
No. I mean, obviously he's got the most important one. And then I mean, when he was on United, he was starting to pull down a lot, right? There were, was it 2 or 3 wins that year? It was that was a big year. And then beyond that,
so he's got the 2018 championship.
Mm-hmm.
He's won a bunch online. He's got 5th, 6th back in 2017. Yeah, I'll have to look at the numbers later. But
is it only one major? Is it only that one was in Atlanta, right? Was that the only major they? I could have swore they had 2 that E United year. Because people are saying 1 ring and 1 major.
He won Pro League Stage 2. 1st through 4th, Pro League Stage 1, 1st through 4th. Atlanta Open, he got 1st for 80,000 in 2017. That was IDub. And then you look at Black Ops 3, not a whole lot of success. Got 2nd place in UMG Open Bracket. He hasn't had the sexiest careers, man. I'll tell you that straight up. Just looking at the total number of championships, but
United made it to the grand final another time. People in chat are bringing that up, which is true. They were in the finals for Atlanta and Dallas. I thought that they won Dallas as well. That was why I thought he had 2 wins that year, and then he had obviously the champs ring. But yeah, they only won the one. They made it to the grand final. Like that year, although it might not reflect as an incredibly sexy year, it was. Even though they didn't necessarily have the wins, they were one of the best team at times. And I feel like that's kind of silly in a nutshell, right? He's always going to put together a team that is consistently performing.
Silly used to be on RL with Stoner. All right, now we're throwing the throwbacks out there.
We're going way back.
The Stoner brothers, bro. Got to look out for them. Rich Campbell, my brain has been fuzzy. The NYXL event crushed my soul, but I'm going to go back and watch a lot of VODs. You were there at the event. Can you give me the top 5 moments from London for anyone like me who's going to go and watch all of the VODs? What were some of the best moments for you, someone that was there?
I actually think that number one has to be that the round 3 of the S&D between Huntsman and I've already mentioned it a few times, but between Huntsman and Paris. That actually was that was so crazy. Number 5 for me, I'm kind of like jumping all over the place as they're popping in my head. But
all right, so the best was watching Scump in that round 3 against Paris.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Number 5 was Surge actually winning. That was pretty hype for me to actually see them win.
Against Eggs and the Gorillas, or which match?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was one of those things though where it wasn't even the fact that like that it was such a is your boy LaRue shredding moment that if you're an Octane fan, it's going to be a sick one to watch. He dropped like 140 in the series. Like it was actually absurd. His KD was like 1.6 or something. He was actually, he just went off, and then App also went off. So that one was just really fun to watch. It's a fun series to watch.
Yep.
It didn't matter who it was that they were playing against.
I watched that one today. Totally vouched. Go watch the whole series. All right.
That's a good one.
Number 4, getting a cake in the face from Scraps.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. That's definitely that was that's pretty enjoyable. Honestly, it's either the number 4 that's not actually a game. It would either be that or getting tackled by the London crowd. I don't know if you saw that, but they tackled me.
What day was this? I missed this moment because YouTube they just got it chopped up to nothing but gameplay.
It was right before the hype battles. I stole their beach ball. And I started running around with it, and they just tackled me. And everybody in the crowd, because I still have my mustache, everybody in the crowd was chanting pedo. They were all just like, pedo, pedo, and they're tackling me. Is
that what encouraged the fresh new look we got going on here?
Yeah, I knew they wanted it, right? I knew they wanted me to shave it, so I was like, you know what? I'll do it for the crowd of London. They were hilarious, man. Their chants were so funny, dude. Like, when they start chanting "Shut up, Maven" and stuff like that, I don't know, they won my heart every time. I thought that they were pretty funny.
And they say "shut up" so differently from us. It has so much more power over there. Shut up, Maven.
It's like a Gregorian chant. It sounds so good. Yeah, Karma blasted on the desk is also one of my top moments. That was so a little
Karma
bit of
was enjoying the show.
Yeah, okay, behind the scenes of how that happened. Karma is standing off camera going, "Rich, come on, let's go. I'm at work." And Karma is like, "Come on, let's." He's telling me to leave the show like he thinks I'm watching or something. And I go, "You know what? What could go wrong?" I'm like, "Karma, we're actually live. Come up on the camera." And he walks up, he's like, "Yeah, dude, what's up, Rich?" And he's like, he literally takes the microphone. He's like, "My team sucks, dude." He's just like, cracking me up. And then he finally walks off.
We got a lot to fix.
Yeah. He finally walks off, and dude, he walks off, and nameless goes, "Dude, Karma is turned, bro." And I go, "Man, I'm gonna have to be turned to listen to this next caster cast." And then Lottie goes, "Yeah, we're headed over to Maven."
No.
Fuck you, Maven. Yeah,
so that was a whole group. It started with Karma, then you had Nameless, Lottie, you again, and then all of London turning against Maven. To make London as great as it was.
That's a highlight. That's a highlight as well. I think this was the saddest part, definitely. But it's like this emotional part that'll always stick with me. You almost can't put it in top 5, but it's just one of those moments that sticks with me is seeing Wuskin lose.
Crying.
Dude, I don't know what it is about Wuskin and Scraps. They have always been players where it is so hard to watch them because you can see how much they care and you understand them as people because they really put it all out there on Twitter and stuff like that. And it is tough to watch them lose. And that definitely stuck with me as well. It's like one of the big moments of the entire tournament. Also, the Crimsix interview was pretty insane. The one where at the last question, he's like, oh yeah, the fans are all, or everybody in the audience is secretly in love with me. And Frankie goes, do you think I'm secretly in love with you? And he goes, no.
She's like, you're right.
Dude, I don't know why that was friends with Frankie and Crim for a long time. So like that moment, just seeing these two humans I'm friends with interact in the weirdest way ever was so enjoyable.
No, I'm gonna get married soon. Leave me alone.
Like, no, stay away.
Stay away.
Just like Crimsix, like jock, like no, get away from.
Don't worry, Frankie's not about it. I love having Frankie there. How is OJ Borg? Did you get to hang out with that guy? He wasn't on stream, guys, but the London event had a legend in the building.
Dude,
in OJ.
He's so fucking cool. That guy's, dude, he's so tall, bro. I don't know why. This was like the weirdest thing ever. I'm trying to remember who said it. I think it was Nameless. I think it was Nameless or Miles. Like the first thing I thought when I saw, it seems like a Miles thing to say now that I think about it. He's like, the first thing I thought when I saw OJ was, man, that guy could headbutt me to death. Like, it's like such a weird comment.
That's 100% a Miles comment.
Yeah, no way Nameless in there, right? He's really cool. I've obviously been a fan of his for a really long time. I remember one time he walked out onto a stage, and this was the first time I ever watched him. I don't know what tournament it was, and he just goes, "Oh baby," and I was like, "Wow, this guy's rad, man. Like he is so fucking rad." And he was just as sick there. I wish that they showed more of it on stream because he really did crush it. He got the crowd going quite a bit. Frankie also always fantastic. I think she's like top of the biz. I've always been impressed by Frankie a lot. So having both of them there was pretty insane.
Can I ask a favor for the future crowds? If your host asks you, are you hype? Are you ready to get hype? Anything along the words hype for hype battles, just give us like a sympathy clap. Even if you're not hype at the time. I felt so bad.
I'm not gonna lie. Fucking, if anybody ever says the word hype, I don't even care if it's called hype battles. You don't have to do anything. If you ever say hype, yeah, like that's on the
marketing team.
Yeah. I think Frankie, like that wasn't even necessarily. There was a lot going on at that moment, so I don't think that was like the best moment for her. So I think she fell back on the title to be like, "Yo, let's get."
And no. It's in your script and your producers in your ear saying it. Because I practiced it all of Minnesota, and unfortunately with Kobe's passing, we canceled the event. But that's always my greatest fear. It's like, here's the marketing tagline I'm supposed to say. We'll see if the crowd has my back or if they're going to tell me to go F myself.
Dude, I honestly, I didn't check the script. If it's in the script, I'm going to write an email and tell them to change saying, are you ready to get hype out of the script? Because I don't think that a crowd will ever go like, hype? Oh, that's us. Woo!
Yay!
I personally, if I hear, are you hype? I literally go like,
no.
Hey mom, what's up? Oh no, can you pick me up? I don't like that.
This comedian sucks. Get me out of here.
Guy's weird. So I mean, honestly, stuff like that's always gonna happen. You write a script for I think it was an 11-hour show and a 9-hour show. One doesn't hit, that's fine. I think that otherwise not even like that moment was bad. I think the camera shot was super good. The way that like pulled out and the desk is 2-part. Dude, the desk is an Autobot. It could have been
great. The guy who came up with the concept for marketing could have killed it, got a raise. Crowd, you just got to have our back for that one segment. I do want to give a shout out though to the competitors that were playing in the hype battle because Nicky Romero and Mad Cat, I thought they were going to get stomped against Doug. And then Nicky Romero was good on the sticks, bro. I was like, this DJ has put a lot of time into Call of Duty.
Dude, Nicky Romero comes out of nowhere. I know it's one song. It's a bop, absolute banger. Comes out of nowhere and just fries Doug, dude. It was so funny. It was funny because at first, too, the crowd, dude, that London crowd is savage. They were cheering for Mad Cat and they were pretty much booing everyone else. Dude, Doug, when he was coming out too, he's high-fiving everyone, and he broke a dude's hand, I swear. I watched Doug just like high-five someone with full. I was like, oh no, that poor
He
dude
Hulk
has to go to the
smashed that
hospital.
child.
Dude, yeah, I could like see like the arm just like fly back, like the dude's on the ground. Doug went way too ham. Everybody was obviously cheering for Doug though too, but then like they did like they just decided to be really cruel at first. The second that they see Nicky Romero fry Doug, they all just start chanting for him, and it was just like this moment where, you know, if you give the crowd what they want, some bread and circus, they're gonna cheer for you, and I love that about London.
It was sick. Final questions I have for you are about your style, because you have always been someone who has pushed the boundaries of comfort, not just for yourself, but for those who have to look at you. But real talk, I have to give you a lot of credit, because I look back at it and I was like, this guy has always been this way from day one that I've ever met you to today. It's not for attention. It's something that you've got built in. You have good style. Where does it come from? When did you start getting weird compliments / comments? Talk me through the whole, like, how I learned to dress myself weird.
Yeah, it's so funny because to me, it's never. Every now and then, maybe I do something ridiculous just for the show, but for the most part, I was always just wearing what I liked. And my sister as well is a lot like that, and she actually works in she worked in fashion for a really long time. And she would always get like comments on like really so I don't know, maybe my parents like didn't raise us right, maybe that's what happened. But yeah, my sister will wear like really ridiculous shit, I guess, too. But I never was actively thinking about it. And I genuinely still stand by the fact that every time that somebody has made a comment on something that I wore, they end up wearing a version of it later.
Yes.
Like Jack made fun of the pink bomber. You remember that picture that like everybody was memeing with Call of Duty with the pink bomber? In his music video with Ariana Grande, he's wearing a pink bomber.
I remember making fun of your jacket, the denim one with the fur. Hold on one second.
Yeah, you literally wear it now. It's like, dude, I swear, every single time that somebody makes fun of something that I'm wearing, you go half a year down the line and somebody's wearing it. See, and I also, like, I look at that and I go, how could you make fun of that?
And the best part is my wife bought it for me. It wasn't even my purchase. It was just like someone who's actually trained and has an eye for fashion is purchasing clothes that you were wearing 3 years before they were cool.
But it's a great jacket. I would still wear it, even though I wore it 3 years ago.
Maven's orange jacket. That may be one moment where that's never coming around. Not even Rich Campbell would touch that one.
That thing was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. Like, more disgusting than Maven not accepting the fact that he was bald. Like, when Maven just had 2 hairs on the top of his head, that looked better than that orange jacket.
Yeah, everyone goes through changes. Everyone goes through changes.
Yeah.
Real talk, though, what is the greatest thing that has come out of dressing weird? Because are you still getting Nike shoes? Are you still getting hooked up? Where do you buy your clothes these days? How do I dress like Rich Campbell in the future?
I definitely did get like a lot of hookups because of it, like down the line, which was pretty cool. But I gotta say, one of the coolest moments for me, he's now my friend. First time I met him, it was pretty insane. I walked up to the first time I met Bruno, and he was just like, dude, I like how you dress. I was like, yo, what's up, dude? Like you man. You look at the shit that Bruno would do.
Who is Bruno for the Call of Duty people who don't know other esports?
So Bruno literally works at Valve now, but Statsman Bruno is one of the all-time greatest analysts ever, and he would straight up show up with wearing a sequenced polar bear. Like, you would never know what he was gonna wear. And the thing with Bruno though was, you know, Bruno obviously wasn't wearing that stuff in real life, and it was for the show. Right. But that was how much he cared, right? Like, he would prep down to coming up with incredible jokes. And knowing Bruno as a friend right now and seeing how his mind works, he is one of the funniest dudes ever. He's also going to be one of the most prepared dudes on a cast when he was still doing that type of work. And he was prepared as far as like what the matches were going to happen, what he wanted to do, and he was preparing his outfits, right? So he was different than me with how he was dressing, but it made the show. I think Bruno is like one of the all-time greats. I can talk about him till I'm blue in the face.
I didn't understand anything that was happening in those Dota games, but I watched to see what Bruno was wearing that day.
Right.
And because
that was
the desk
thing.
made me laugh, especially when Gods was around in crew.
Dude, dude, they're all fucking awesome. And then I mean, you even look James days. I watch back a lot of his hosting stuff, and I'm like, it's insane that I could probably get away with this joke now. I mean, Shanghai Major, you could not get away with, but a lot of the stuff that that James was doing, you could not do back then, and he still did it. And now I think I could get away with it, right? And if he didn't fall for all of us, I don't know if I would be in a situation like that right now. I probably still couldn't call a player a bottom bitch or talk about getting around the firewall to actually watch pornography. Still, I feel like
you
that's
might be able to. The second one,
Dude.
you just got to use different words.
Dude, the wheelchair joke,
We'll stop
he's
there.
a madman. Yeah, he's a madman.
Don't go down that bus. Yeah,
he's a madman.
Real quick, what is on your microphone, and are you wearing them tomorrow?
Oh, I forgot about that. I have this it's a Gucci sock on my buddy. I don't know if you any.
Of course, it's Gucci.
Yeah,
that's not Old
Well,
Navy right there, guys.
Yeah. So basically, my this was supposed to be my sister's birthday present. I got it while I was working H1Z1 in Vegas. There was a Gucci there, so I bought her a pair of Gucci socks. I thought it was a cool birthday present. My one buddy would always have a sock over his microphone as a pop filter, and I was like, wow, that's genius. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I was like, but I really need to make sure that I'm outdoing him so it doesn't look like it was his idea. I need to make it my own idea. So I put the Gucci sock on it. I never got my sister a birthday present that year. So I actually still owe her a birthday present, but this is my pop filter for my mic, and it smells terrible at this point.
It looks great, though. It looks great. Rich Campbell, I've stolen your time for over an hour and a half. I want to thank you for coming on the Codtacular podcast. You are going to be on the road with the Call of Duty League all season. Confirmed?
Yes, all season confirmed.
All season. And for those that still love you in the Dota world, where are we going to see you next?
I'm not 100% sure yet. I was on a call right now. I am working on something. I am not going to be hosting I'm not sure if I can even say this yet, but as of right now, there are no plans for me to be working on the major as talent, but I'm working on something really special with a few players, with another talent who I'm not going to say right now, and I'm working on something that I've never really done before, and I think it's going to be really cool. So expect some stuff around the major.
And last, if you're listening to this beyond the summit, I would like to offer Rich, myself, and a whole bunch of other esports casters to come compete in a tournament in a Beyond the Summit house for a week, playing a variety of games, and I'll help you produce it. With that said, thank you all. Why did Rich Campbell get fired? You'll have to tune in to the next episode to find out. He's working now, though, boys and girls. He's back in Call of Duty. This was Codtacular, episode number 4. Before we go, we've got a lot of people on the stream, so I want to shout out one more time. My good buddy, Kingdom Soldier, is going through a tough time right now. He's transitioning jobs, and he's trying to support the family. We just got the power turned back on today. We've had an awesome number of donations coming in, but before you go, scroll down here on twitch.tv/Puckett, click that GoFundMe, $5, $10, whatever you got. Every little bit helps as they are setting up for his future career, and in the meantime, he's still pumping out Call of Duty content, something he's been doing for close to a decade now. So go support my man, Kingdom Soldier. I'll put the link in the chat after the show. Thank you all for watching. That's Rich Campbell. Go check out Rich's social media at Rich W. Campbell. Let's get him up to like 22,000 followers, right, Rich? Is that where we're at?
I have no idea where I'm at.
We're getting you to
now.
200,000. It's happening tonight.
There we go.
Just kidding. I love you. Goodbye, buddy.
Bye.
Are we going to the bar now? I'll meet you there.